5:30, so I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we're gonna start with fire department staffing request for the fiscal year 25-26 budget.
Of course, this is carryover from the last meeting that we had, the last council work session we had, requesting 4 new positions. Salary plus the fringes. 696.96. That's proposed in my budget. To daylight staffing due to the shortage of volunteers during the day. 6 A to 6 P, 7 A to 7 P.
Is that adding 4 new positions or 2 new positions plus you hired?
It's adding new
Adding
positions
4
plus,
brand new ones.
plus the 2 I had. That'll bring us to 6 full-time daylight, and it'll give us a 2 truck company. We'll be able to get 2 trucks out during the day, staffed.
And you said it was 282, 696.
Yeah, 282, 696.
Okay.
That's in the proposed budget. Consideration.
We're bringing that up tomorrow.
Yeah, it's on the
That's
agenda.
on the agenda, yeah. All right. Do you have those 4 people ready to go? Those 4 people ready to like,
Got to advertise for them. Got to advertise for them. We're in the process right now, replacing the 2 that we, 2 vacancies we have. We've got one that's accepted. He starts February the 10th, and we've got one.
right, so we'll move to item 3, unless there's anything else on item 2. Okay, move to item 3, emergency medical services staffing request. 25-26 budget.
Following suit in our budget request, put in for 6 additional positions. The reason for that, and that's provider positions. The reason being those 6 would put us at having enough salaried staff to meet minimum staffing every day. Currently, we're staffing 2 trucks during the day and night. That's our minimum staffing with the supervisor. Adding 6 positions would meet those numbers with strictly salaried people with, no one's on vacation. We put those 6 in the EMS billing fund and then added 1 position to the town fund to see if we could get another admin, kind of like Kelly, because Kelly's so tied up a lot with the billing on the fire side. I think it'd be beneficial to have someone, a counterpart in our, strictly in our building too. That way she's not getting spread thin. A lot of that duty would be ensuring QA on the billing aspects of the call reports. Visited Pulaski County last week, and they kind of have a similar model, and that's one of the main tasks of their admin system is. So they definitely see the need to have that, and it would take a lot of workload off of our current lieutenants, which would get them in the field more and out of the office too. So it would just kind of help load balance across the department.
So you said 6 additional service provider positions and then 1 admin position?
That's correct.
What's the estimated cost?
Bumps it up. So it's about 52,500 per position. If it was a paramedic, it would be about 45,000 if it was an EMT. At a minimum, I think 2 would have to be paramedics if we wanted to have the shifts, the providers distributed evenly across the shifts. We're to do that model.
Plus overhead, right?
Saying
Plus overhead.
correct. Yeah, and there's quite a jump in our overtime budget projection, mainly because we staff the 24/72, which is there's built-in overtime into that, in addition to our the holiday time that we accrue, which is again pretty significant because at any given holiday we're paying out 24 hours regardless of how the shifts split their time to basically a full shift. So the Christmases and Thanksgivings that we see a run on it. But again, also there's an overtime built in to cover every town function that we're currently staffing but we see a big impact to the overtime budget. But again, that might go down because the more that we can staff with our salary people, the less overtime we're gonna need. Certainly, we do end up paying part-timers some overtime just to meet minimum staffing sometimes.
And then admin position costs
I think, but it's 60,000.
To its branches.
Yeah.
plus
That would be with range.
with, that includes it. Any questions on that?
No.
All right, the move to item 4, police department staffing request for fiscal year 25-26 budget.
Step up here just so the camera can pick up the sound. This is just to give you an overview and kind of a little bit of understanding when the budget request comes in. It is already in the budget request, but I wanted a chance to offer some clarity on this because I didn't want it to just look like I'm asking for 6 new positions outright. We have about 10 people over the next 2 years that are planning to retire. We have 3 this year who are eligible and in the very serious planning stages to go, and then 6 or 7 next year, depending on one that hasn't quite made up its mind yet. When we hire a new officer, if we can't find somebody who's already certified, we're looking at about a year of training time to do that. Because they have to go to the academy, which is 22 weeks, and then there's about 12 to 14 weeks of field training before they can be released, and they're actually on their own answering calls. An additional delay in that is that the academy only runs 2 times a year. This year, the academy started in January. The next session starts the last week of May. So if we wait till positions actually come open to hire somebody, then we have to wait until next January to put those folks in the academy, and then we would be that academy time and field training time before they're actually released and done. If we did the same thing next year after losing 6 people, the upshot of it is we're about 18 months behind where we'd be running 6 to 10 people short while people are in training. So what this request is for is to allow us to go overstaff of what we're authorized, to hire up to 6 over what we are already authorized, but before the people actually retire, so we can put them in training in the current academy, in the coming academy this May, or the one next year in preparation for the ones that will retire next year. And that way we can kind of get their training done right as the retirees are exiting. So we don't create such a burden on the staff that's staying behind, because we've been in that boat for the last year and a half or so. Our current staff's been working shorthanded. We've had to augment shift, letting them work overtime, volunteer, work on different shifts than their own, so there's no shift coverage sometimes. And it really tends to burn people out quickly when they have to work their regular shift and then come in and work somebody else's shift too, to keep coverage on the road. So what this is intended to do is keep our staffing levels where we are, train our new people before the old ones exit, and then as they exit, we just wouldn't hire new behind that. So for the short term, we would be overstaffed. We're authorized 62 sworn positions under full strength. We would potentially go as high as 68 if we got everybody. There's no guarantee I can find 6 people over to hire right now. But if we did, we would be that much over while those folks are in the academy and in field training with the others leaving. Before we would hire people that would be overstaffers, we would have a written commitment from the retirees that I intend to leave on such and such date.
Mhm.
So we wouldn't just kind of be winging it. We would actually have in writing. Now, that wouldn't be legally binding. Somebody could always back out and say, change my mind, I'm not gonna go. But the folks that are talking about retiring are longtime people who are planning to retire. Most of them are very adamant. They know the date and they're counting it down to the minutes that I'm out of here on such and such date. So this is just intended to keep us staffed at the right level while we're losing people, and not burn out our remaining staff and have those folks, and when you start to see that level of overwork, for lack of a better word, you see people start to seek jobs elsewhere, that kind of thing, and I don't want to lose staff that we already have that should be staying behind because we're putting them in that position. I think it's random numbers on that. And for everybody that, every new person we have to hire, we are about $57,000, some change into it to get them trained, hired, and equipped. So it's, it's a very costly proposition to hire a new police officer and train them. So I certainly don't want to lose any staff that, in the meantime, the retirements, they're gonna happen. I mean, people are gonna retire from their position after a career of service, but I don't want to have anybody else feel like they should leave either. So what this adds to the salary line for the budget is about $441,982. That includes entry-level salary and fringe, so that does include the benefit.
And do we pay, I just don't know this, do we pay a salary for the folks who are going through the academy? So we pay for the academy and then we pay them salary while they're in the academy?
They're hired before they go to the academy, so they're actually on payroll.
Okay.
And that's their assignment, is to go to the academy. We don't pay like a college tuition to the academy. We pay an annual rate per officer, per authorized officer at the agency. The coming fiscal year, the academy's rate is $421 per officer per agency. So 421 times 62, and I can't, that number escapes me right off the top of my head, but it's 26 or 28,000, I think, or something like that. We pay that, we pay that to the academy whether we're fully staffed or not. But then when we need to send somebody to the academy, we don't pay anything extra. I mean, they just go, and we send as many people as we need to throughout the year.
What if someone applies who has already been, so what if we say yes to these positions and then someone applies that's already received training? Would you say you're just hiring for brand new untrained officers?
That's something that we're always looking to hire certified people because we do save so much training costs on that. The thing right now, we wouldn't hope to hire 4 or 5 certified officers and have them extra for a year.
Yeah.
We're already, right this moment, we're 1 position short. So we do have, if somebody does apply that's certified, I can plug them in right now. Right now I have 61 employees and we're authorized 62. We're going to hire, we were going to be flush after the last round of hiring, and 1 person didn't make it all the way through the academy, so that kicked us back 1, and we were actually going to be 1 over if we could do it, but those folks didn't pass the background check. So what we're running into, we have a process open now to take applications. It's been open since the first of the year. We're going to test the last couple of days of February. We have 12 applicants committed to conduct the test so far. And of that, if history is any indicator, about half of them will actually show up. And of those, maybe half will pass the physical test and the written test. And then we hope we'll get 2 or 3 good ones out of the interview process, and they'll have clean backgrounds, move forward from there. But typically with that number of applicants, we are lucky to get 1 out. How things been going lately. And then to exacerbate this issue too, everybody in the area is in the same boat.
Yeah.
Blacksburg currently 7 positions down right now, I think, and they're anticipating 5 or 6 more retirements this year. The county's down, everybody across. So, and in an area this size, we're all kind of hiring out of the same pool. We're all drawing, fishing for the same applicants. So it is a very competitive market, and we really need to take advantage of things where we can and hang on to the employees we've got and do whatever we can to get new employees in at a timely manner.
How many did you say you're retiring this year?
I'm sorry?
How many did you say
I
are
have 3
in the next
I
year?
have 3 that are really seriously talking about it this year. 1 is definitely going April 1st, 1's going July 1st, and 1 is on the fence for October. Also have 3 that are eligible, not counting myself, I would make 4. 3 that are eligible to go anytime they want to, but they're not saying they're going. So one of those might, but it's just kind of up in the air, can't pin them down. And then the next year is a minimum of 6 and possibly 8. So we're looking at 10 or 11 over the next 2 years before next October.
So for these positions, what would you, classify them as?
In the payroll program.
Yeah.
They'll go in as police officers, but they'll have their own line, I believe, as a part or a temporary full-time employee. So they'd be in the same pay grade as a police officer. I mean, that's, you know, they get the same.
But you have guys that are patrol, you got guys that are
Yeah,
CID.
that we would create a line in the pay plan for part-time, or not, I keep calling it part-time, temporary full-time employee.
So the intent would be, let's say you have 62 and you don't really think you have anybody. Or next year, there's only 2 potential retirees. You're not gonna keep 6 in the.
No, we
We're not
wouldn't.
gonna keep 68 people on board, where it's only the backfill for
Correct.
knowledge, and that's what the positions are for.
Correct, and it's only as we know openings are on the imminent horizon. We wouldn't, I've talked to the town manager about this and assured him that this is not an attempt to grow the strength of the police department. It would be, when we get through the retirements and those folks go, we go back down to the 62 level.
So there's not a way to do the overage without adding positions onto the books.
Well, really would need them in training. If you're gonna hire them, you have to pay them if we're sending them to the academy. So, I mean, I think you're kind of taking a chance if you wait, that they could be short-staffed because within retirements.
In the past, when we've had, you know, one retirement here and there, which is what we've seen over the years, I don't really recall a year where we've had more than one person retire from the police department. There's almost always enough wiggle room in the existing budget from a vacancy, you know, where you were vacant for
Yeah.
3-4 months a year, you have enough money to go ahead and hire somebody and replace them. But when we're talking about 6 people going between next June and October, I hope I don't have that much leftover money in salary, because if I do, we've been running really short for a really long time.
Yeah, and I'm not an objection to it. I just didn't know if there was a different way to accomplish it so that, you know, in 2 years or whenever you retire, the next chief don't come in and go, well, I got 68 positions on the book. I'm gonna,
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be town administration and say,
That'd certainly be relayed from administration and I believe town council, you're hiring the next police chief.
I mean, I don't think there would be anything to prevent them moving the spots out of the paper.
we can always say, but I
Hopefully
just
she's
again,
here for the next 2 years to, you know.
well, that's what I'm saying. 2 or 4, or however long you decide to stay around, but, also thinking for the councils down the road, somebody's gotta, you
keep
know,
track of it.
yeah.
But they're temporary positions, so once you hire them in, they're not there anymore.
Kind of classified as a dual incumbency. That's the way that I'm used to seeing positions like that. When you got somebody retiring, you hire somebody and you're putting them in the same role. It's classified as a dual incumbency.
We look at the Katie's position, down somebody.
Okay. So the other, question is from a leadership standpoint, obviously you got guys that are that senior. You got that many guys retiring, you got a whole force
We do.
of senior officers and senior policemen who are officers who are gonna be stepping out.
We do. And we are working to address that now. We've enrolled several people over the last year in various leadership training and trying to get them into field training officer positions and move them up, you know, as much as we can, give them as much responsibility as we can while the other folks are still here. But mainly trying to affect that through training. We've been sending people to the FBI's leadership series, which is a 3-school leadership plan that each school is a week long and they go through it on different months. We've sent several people through that. New River Community College has developed a law enforcement leadership training program that runs during a school semester. And the class meets once a week. We had 4 people in that the last session. We've got 3 signed up to go today to the next one of that. So we are actively trying to pick, you know, people and get them, the people that are interested in supervisory positions, get them trained ahead of time so they're ready to take those next steps. But there's no there's no easy way around it. We are going to be a young department after so many people retire, because at the end of next summer, I fully expect the entire existing command staff to be gone. And about half of the lieutenants be gone. So we're gonna have a lot of people who are sergeants now are gonna be moving up. Some of them might, you know, be going sergeant to captain, who knows what comes.
Yeah, we got, but I mean, I recall when we were doing the review process for the chief, police chief position. And, there's a lot of law enforcement classes and training and stuff that you guys, at least from looking at resumes, that you guys can,
We
you
are,
can send guys to.
we are working, we've got a, you know, we're trying to make the best possible use of our training budget and make sure people are getting the supervisory schools and leadership schools that they can get, you know, ahead of time. Because the old model in law enforcement for the last 50 years was you get promoted and then you get trained how to be a supervisor. Yeah, that's not really the best way to do it. So we've been trying for several years now to train people first and then have them ready to take that next step. And it can be, as you said, training through schooling and academics and that kind of thing. But it can also be in-house training.
Sure.
Letting people take a leadership role in their shift one night when the supervisor might actually be there, but just say, you've got it tonight. You pick sides, assign people, you know, run the supervisory role and go to calls and back people up, do that kind of stuff. So we've been working all along to do that. And I think we have a really good crop of field training officers and sergeants who are ready to move up into the next levels. And we're gonna, you know, where half the lieutenants are gonna be gone, half of them are still gonna be there. And those folks have been around for a long time. Have a lot to offer and a lot are ready to move into command.
We will move to the next item, Montgomery County Emergency Services request.
So basically, what we are gonna request from Montgomery County, whether it's, salaries, capital, whatever capital desires.
Well, before I jump into any thoughts or plans or ideas, what, is there any recommendation or has anybody else thought more about what it is? Not percentage wise, but just, are we planning to ask for a percentage of salaries? Well, like you said, a percentage of the building? Do we think they'll be willing to pitch in for that building if they build further down Pepper's Ferry? I know you went to a meeting that they discussed that a little bit. Anything interesting? to that?
Supervisor Gibbs has proposed that the county do a study.
Yeah.
And that study has not been approved by the board of supervisors yet. It's not been presented to the board of supervisors, except that he brought it up and said, I think we should do a comprehensive study for future planning for fire and EMS through Montgomery County. So that's all we really know about what their plan is for right now. We did, Christina, can you pull up that first sheet there?
Which one?
I want, try that one right now, the next one down, try that one, see what that one looks like.
Just while you're pulling that up,
Yeah.
I don't think we should wait on their study personally. I feel like that's gonna take years and we just did one.
So Scott made the suggestion at the last council work session meeting that we look at percentages instead of asking them, you know, for set figures on salaries, set figures on the building. We look at percentages of what we do. And if you look at the chart down here in the bottom left-hand corner, that's the year-end totals for all the departments in Montgomery County that run calls. And of all the calls in Montgomery County, 14,109 calls throughout Montgomery County. That includes every fire department in Montgomery County, every EMS agency in Montgomery County. It includes Virginia Tech Rescue. It includes Montgomery County Fire Department, which is now staffing the Elliston Fire Department. And it also includes the two medic units, the one they have in Charlottesville and the one they have in. So if you look at the overall funding, the county's fire and EMS budget for last year, 2024, was $1,060,596. That's the total budget. If you break it down in percentage of calls, Christiansburg Fire and EMS run 5,243 calls, and that breaks down in this chart into 37.16% of the calls within the county. Our portion of the budget that we receive, both fire and EMS, of that $1,060,000 budget is $305,295. If we break it down into the percentage, if we do it as a percentage through the whole county, that figure, our portion of that figure should be about 394, 124, based on those numbers. So if you roll it up just a little bit, Christine. So if you look at the bottom half of the chart on the left, VTRS, Virginia Tech Rescue Squad, FEMS Fire, Medic 131, Medic 132. Those four agencies right there are not included. They're not funded out of this 1,060,000. They've got their own. Tech gets no funding from Montgomery County to run EMS. McFEMS, Montgomery County Fire and EMS, Fire and Medic 131, 132 has their own separate operating budget aside of this 1,060,000. So got the next one too, Kristen.
Yeah.
So if we back those calls out, if we take those out of the 14,109, if we back their call totals out of the 14,109, then we're down to 11,192 calls in the county. If we back those out, we still, we still 5243, and our percentage of that call volume, because we backed out those calls, increased our call volume up to 46% of the total calls that are run. Both fire and EMS combined run 46% of the calls within the county. So we're in the last chart that I showed you the last time, our current funding levels at 305, 295. If we look at it with taking those four agencies out, because they're not funded out of the 1,060,000, then our percentage jumps up to 46.85%. We should be getting funded 496, 846, roughly. These are just round figures, from the county. That would bump it up that high. Information I don't have McFEMS's operating budget. I don't know what their operating budget is. I don't know how much money they get from the county to operate. But if you look at percentages, and I thought that was a great idea, Scott, to look at it percentage wise. If we were looking for an increase, a realistic figure, of course, our budgets are already submitted. County requires us to submit our budget for 25 in December. Our budget's already been submitted. So this is, if this is going to be another request, and I think it's come from Randy to be an additional request. I can't go back and ask for more money after I've already submitted my budget for the year. But we just got a $60,000 increase in our total operating budget, both fire and EMS last year. We asked even funded this year because I didn't know where we were going to go with this committee to be able to ask for more. But if you go back and if you go back to the first slide that we had there, Christina, go back and look at the numbers here. We're at 305, 295 currently. And if we looked at it as a percentage breakdown as a whole for the whole county, you're looking at 394, 124. We're not that far off where we should be if you look at it from a percentage rate. But if we back those four agencies out, then it grows. It grows soon. Better. My thought process is I don't think we need to ask them for salaries. Because I think that they're going to, the same thing with the school resource officers. Ask them to do the school resource officers. If we ask them to pay salaries, they're going to pay their own people. Set up to do that now.
No, I like this percentage, and I like the numbers, the way you broke them out here. And I do think it should be based off the amount of calls. And then you can't argue, well, last year you did 100 calls and this year you only did 50.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's based off.
It's based off of what you're running. It's based off the call volume that you're running.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's a fair way about doing it. I mean, if you look at it that way, that's a pretty fair way about doing it. I mean, it's based off of call volume. And, and if you look, and just some of the stats, that I look at, and I'm not a real numbers guy or anything. I just know that when we're on the road, we're on the road. But if you look at Blacksburg Fire Department's total for the year last year, they run 1,399 calls last year. If you back out 490 calls from Virginia Tech, where we're running normal homes at Virginia Tech, we're running more calls than they are in Christiansburg. Their call volume's up 490 calls because they run door alarms at Tech. But if you back that 490 calls out, we're running more calls in Blacksburg. It's just the fire department. You know, you can already look at our numbers, you know, as far as EMS goes, we're already running more calls for EMS than Blacksburg Rescue's running. And then Virginia Tech runs 1,326 calls, you know, on campus, for their EMS people, so. We are, you know, our EMS in Christiansburg is the busiest two departments within the county, and that's the numbers. I mean, numbers don't tell a different story, those are the numbers.
So, when we think about what we're gonna ask the county for, one thing that I worry about is them wanting something that is stagnant, but this could be a dynamic request based on the way the averages are changing. So, is there any thought to looking at like a 3-year average to say in the last 3 years, this has been the average of what we've run, and see if we can commit to, we'll adjust, we'll update, because, and I think that it's important that we show that for a couple reasons. Like, I think it gives us a comprehensive picture of what we're running versus if you have an up or a down kind of a year, but also they're gonna build probably more stations, hire more people, get more equipment. That could drastically change what they pitch in the next year, but if we have a 3-year average, that lessens that change for us, gives us some time to plan, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I know it's dynamic, and they'll have to be okay with a request that changes a bit. But I feel like that gives us a good like snapshot of what the percentages are, and just looking over the percentages, it seems like it's been fairly consistent. It's gone down a little bit, what we've done in the last few years, but, I anticipate that's gonna probably go down a little bit, but then again, it might not with all the new development, it might. So,
You know, the numbers could fluctuate year from
Yeah.
year. And, you know, if go back and look at a 3-year average, that'll give us a fine tune a little bit more.
the other piece of it is, I was thinking about what we need to hire, what we need to consider for like attrition rates. It was like the National Volunteer Fire Association, I can't remember the name of it, but said that the average attrition rate for rural, like fire departments is about 15%. And so I tried to calculate what we would need to hire to make up for that attrition rate. That being said, I think if we were to target about 2 positions a year, we would, in about 10 years, get up to 24 to 30 people in staffing.
Right.
But that changes the budget request even more, because then I think we would need to be open with them and say, our plan is to be hiring this, and that is gonna change what our budget request is. If we're doing a fuller percentage of the budget, it's gonna go up. So if we can give them a little bit of a heads up, you know, that's what our request is, and here's what we anticipate it might change. I think that would just be transparent of us to say, we're gonna ask this percentage and it's gonna go up, but here's why we're shifting to a paid deferred.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I understand.
We'll see. But I think it's fair to tell them that that's the plans before they commit to saying, we'll give 40% and then we hire, 10 people and we surprise them. I just want them to know we aren't gonna try to trick them. We're doing this in a really like calculated way.
Yeah, I think the Department of Fire Program study, comprehensive study of Department of Fire Program has led Montgomery County to move forward with what that study's recommendations were.
Mhm.
I think that justifies everything you're also, because it included us and it included that study.
Mhm. So maybe can we look at the 3-year average? Are you okay with that? A 3-year average, you know what I'm saying by lessening the impact of if something changes 1 year or the next. But if we could do 3 year, yeah, go ahead.
Which, the one caveat with the 3-year average is that we're less than 3 years since the inception of McFinn's. So if we're pulling data, we should make sure that it's like, what would it look like if they were there 3 years ago against 3 years ago?
Yeah.
So do we know actually when you send an ambulance crew out of town, do we know what our actual cost during the time of that call is?
We have an average, and I think the average amount I know the average amount we intake is around $300 per call. That's just that's a very general average. It's more of a cost per hour,
Okay.
which I have.
And it's the same billing with you. I mean, the cost of operating fire trucks and,
And it depends on the type of call too,
Yeah.
because, we don't run all the trucks on every call. We might only run 2 trucks depending on the type of call, or we may run 4. So it would depend on the type of call. It would be really hard to put together a solid average on that, but we get, get some calls. You have
So,
to do a call breakdown and types of call.
I think as long as you list your assumptions
Yeah.
and just provide your assumptions, you're in
Yeah.
good shape.
so I think that, I think that the right thing to do is that percentage of what we're doing in the county, of our total operating budget. So that brings me to capital costs and building a new station. What would we like to ask the county to contribute to that effort? Is it a percentage as well?
Is that something you're gonna ask for down the road, or we're gonna ask for this budget year? We don't have a lot to build on this budget year, and even if we do, when we purchase a lot right now, we'll be well into the fall before we can do any design work. I don't know.
I think it's important to tell them up front that, we have desire to do this. What part do you plan to participate in? If we put a fire station out on Pepper's Ferry corridor somewhere, are you gonna wanna occupy X positions? What part are you running to play in this? And then say, okay, you want 20% of the building? You want 20% of the play?
So I guess my question would be is do you want Montgomery County to staff in our building? And staff their equipment in?
Is it not part of the?
We have Montgomery County equipment in our building currently.
Is that the agreement the towns have with the county at the moment, is that we've always kind of done it that way? Not that we always have to do what we've always done, but.
But my question is, do you want them to pay for staff and be Montgomery County employees in a Christiansburg building running Montgomery County equipment out of our building?
I think my preference would be that it's our employees, and just because of the revenue recovery being cleaner. Maybe that's not an issue, but it seems like if our employees are running the calls, then we can do that revenue recovery, right? Even if we use Montgomery County.
I think if we're gonna go after funding, I think we should go after for funding. And then we spend the funding how we want to spend it. If we want to spend the funding on salaries, then we spend it on salaries. And town Christiansburg employees operating the same way we operate right now. Town equipment in the town, county equipment in the county, and we run county equipment in the town, we run town equipment in the county if we have to.
Yeah.
But I would rather us have funding, some type of funding balance. And then if we choose to hire personnel with that funding, and they're our employees, we control our employees for our people. And we don't have mixed uniforms in one building. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
This, sorry. Especially with like the changes now to the pharmacies and everything like that, having mixed uniforms in a building poses challenges. They're not to say that we can't overcome them, but I can't have a Montgomery County person just hop on the truck anymore and provide care out of our ambulance because they're not cleared by our OMD to practice under our license. So
And Montgomery County has a different OMD.
So we look at the percentages of our total operating budget. I do think that we need to figure out a timeline for the building. And we need to share that with them and what that request will be, because when we build the building and we put equipment in the building, our budget's gonna go up, just like when we have personnel.
Part of the building plan. Ever since we started blah down Running Street. Our apparatus plan and our equipment plan for each building, we're splitting everything we've got in our building down there right now, we'll split it. Half of it's gonna go to the new building. We're not gonna have to buy new apparatus to go to the new building, just split it. Like currently, we have 2 county engines in the downtown station. one of those county engines is gonna go to the station.
Well, that's good.
We've got 2 county brush trucks, one of the county brush trucks is going to the station. If we have 2 town ladder trucks, one of the ladder trucks is going to the new station. We've been building on that since we bought it. We bought, I think when, Barry Ham's town manager may be ready to bought that ladder truck, we bought that demo ladder truck to start. We had some surplus money in the budget that year, and we were able to purchase a second ladder truck, to move forward with having 2 stations. So we've got the apparatus and the equipment to staff those stations. We just split it up.
Yeah, it's
And
good news.
that way you don't have to buy, like if we build a new station, we don't have to buy we don't have to buy another $8 million worth of equipment to put in the station. The county currently owns 9 pieces of equipment in our station. And we're getting, along with our 2 new trucks that we will get toward the end of this upcoming budget year, we're getting another new engine from Montgomery County this year also. So our fleet's gonna be relatively new, moving forward for the next 5 to 10 years. We're gonna have new stuff. So as far as fleet and equipment, stuff like that, we're in good shape. We built on that since 17. So we've tried to get us to the point where if we ever build this, we open the doors on it, we just slide equipment over into it, we're ready.
So I think that we need a couple things. Well, first, I think we have some way forward on what our request should be. Thanking them for the support that they give us, looking at the 3-year average, telling them that this is what we would like to request. I know that it will probably have to be for next fiscal year. I don't suppose they would entertain that request after we've already turned the budget in. They probably done some budget planning based on that.
I think they would entertain it because they haven't adopted their budget.
Okay, well, let's ask them. I mean, shouldn't tell ourselves no on behalf of them.
Yeah, no, I still think I mean, they can also do a budget amendment, so it's not impossible. I say we.
Well, I think they did a budget, the county did a budget amendment last year or so when they took on the new deputies and the school resource officers.
Yeah.
I think
so
that was,
figure out what percentage.
that came kind of after the budget had been presented. And if it's-
And they also did a budget amendment to get McPhil started last year
Right.
after their budget had been adopted. But that part of it had to be included in their upcoming budget because that's an operation. That's everyday stuff.
And then I think there's a couple things we also have to tell them, and that's what our future plans are. Because I feel like we need to ask them for support and we need to secure that support for the future so that they don't just give us support for 1 year and then cut it out the next year. So I think we're not just asking for support for the next year, but we're saying ongoing, we're hoping that we can share with you these 3-year averages and that you'll be committed to funding whatever that percentage is
Yes.
as it flexes. And they'll want to know that we're not going to just pile on a bunch of stuff. So we share with them, what we're planning to do is hire a couple of positions per year as we transition to a paid staff. We are planning to build a new building, but we don't anticipate that that is part of this budget request. We're not just lumping that in. We'll explore their contribution to the building separately. So we're not just gonna get them to commit to giving us 40% and then we throw, a $10 million building in. And then I think we asked them to commit to this for a period of time. That's reasonable.
I do, to be honest, it'd be nice for them to commit to it going forward.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Cost will be going forward.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
And just full disclosure, I think you're probably at least 3 years out from construction on the building.
Yeah.
Just fiscally, I just think you are.
And I'm not trying to rush the building discussion. I just want them to know we're
It
not.
might be
gonna toss it
longer,
in.
kind of depending on discussions with the county. I think.
Yeah. I do want us to work on a timeline for this transition to paid staff. I have done the most general, simple numbers to see what it would take to get us there. But if we can get a plan, a 10 to 15-year plan for transitioning to paid staff and see if that's workable, doable, so we can keep that in mind in future budgets. And then we just know we can do 2 positions per year. We kick it off with 4 in this budget, then, that just gives us a jump start ahead. And then a timeline for when we want to do the building. And I say that because the lights aren't all gonna be green at the same time to do this building, but we have got to have a target so that we can pin
You gotta have something to work
the
with.
decisions down.
You gotta have something to
So,
work toward,
yeah.
because, you know, since 17, we've worked toward building that one down on Roanoke Street, we're it's a community garden now,
Right,
and, we still haven't done it. I still get people that call every once in a while, want to know when we're gonna build that station, and why is there a garden on it?
Yeah.
And, you know, the sole purpose when we talked to Eames Brothers into selling that piece of property was they wanted it to be a fire station, and that's why they sold it to us.
and you had money in the budget for engineering plans for the
Got
building.
money in the budget, this current budget year, we've got $1 million in the budget from planning and engineering. Once we come up with a site, but we're not gonna spend that money until we come up with
No.
a site. And then I had put in this current budget request to roll that money over to the next year to continue, just continuously roll that money over. And then if, you know, this piece of property comes for sale, we can purchase that piece of property and then we can sit down, we can start spending some money on, you know, on the planning of the department and get, you know, hire a firm, you know, come in and engineer and draw the thing.
Yeah.
You know, we can look at it and throw numbers at it all day long, but we don't know until we have a piece of property, and we don't know until we have a piece of property that we know it's gonna be a 1-level station or a 2-level station. So, we've got to secure a piece of property, and I think once we do that, with some plans, some firm plans, and then we'll have a better idea of what to ask the county for, moving forward on that side.
And I think a timeline will help us to decide when it's time to stop waiting for something else on Covers Ferry to open up. I mean, I would love for us to sell that piece of property because I think it is so valuable. But if it takes us 10 years to sell it, that's, you know, and our target, we need a fire station in the next 3 to 5.
And
And no other properties come available, we're kind of stuck and we have something to use, we have to decide we're gonna use it.
Can I ask a question about
Yes, sir.
your engineering funds? Is that for final design or is that for preliminary needs assessment type stuff to see what size building you would need? Basically, so you know what size chunk of land to go for.
Well,
type of stuff.
we've sent, Scott, we've done some work on that, you know, including the lot on the street, and then when we decided you know, the heat map shows larger call volume.
Right.
We had an engineer come in, or I had an engineer come in, and it's a guy that works for Stuart Cooper Newell. And they did the work on the Reiner Fire Station. When they come in and did all the work on the Reiner Fire Station, I met with Ken Stewart and rode him around town, showed him the Roanoke Street lot. We showed him the lot on Glen Stewart Boulevard, which is way too small to do anything with right now. And then we did a questionnaire, station design questionnaire myself. I filled out a questionnaire for the fire department, and Dustin Williams at that time with rescue, filled out what the needs for rescue would be,
Right.
took all that information, put it together, and free of charge, he said, you're gonna need at least 19,000 square feet, and you're gonna need at least 5 acres to be able to do that, if we're looking at a 1-level station, single level station.
Mhm.
I think some of the perks about a single level station is unless you have a lot that's laid out to where the second floor of that station could be ground level, then you're gonna have to put an elevator, a full-size elevator in it.
Yeah.
That runs a price up. Now, it probably runs a price up $600,000 just on putting an elevator in the building, because I priced a full-size elevator for our station, and the fit on that 5 or 6 years ago was $450,000, so.
And I guess my thought is, in a commercial district, you could be paying $400,000 or $500,000 an acre. So if you have a smaller site, maybe it's worth putting the elevator in. Outrageous.
Exactly, and that's what we have to look at, and I know, there's one piece of property we looked at, we could actually do a 3-story station on it, we could have a parking garage underneath the building for the employees to park underneath the building, and you've got a main level that comes out on the street, and then you've got an upper level that you can come in to the administration wing and everything from the top side, the way that lot works. But that lot's gonna be, that's gonna be $12 million.
I am cautious about selling that piece of property that's at the park until we know if there's anything available in that area.
Well, I think we also know, or Randy and I discussed the other day on the way to a meeting, Montgomery County's looking at some spots out on 114 anyway, to build a fire station. Or fire and rescue station,
EMS station.
EMS station. So,
They're looking at the lot into water plant.
yeah,
Walking road, ability to station. But, how far down the road is that?
well, that's the whole thing. That's, that's like Derek's study will probably be studied to death, and it may be 3 years before he ever gets that study done.
So who can take the reins on putting together a timeline for the second station construction? And it's just a target. It's just if we had our way, what's a reasonable timeline?
Okay.
And it's just something to just set ourselves and kind of figure out where we are in planning and help us like prioritize some planning needs. Yeah. All right. In the meantime, you guys are gonna get the 3-year averages, so we know exactly what the request is to the county. We're also going to look at what it takes, what your budget would be adding those 4 positions. That's what we'll work off of. If council doesn't approve those 4 positions, then we change that letter. We just don't send it until after we meet with council, and of course, council doesn't want to see the letter and give their thumbs up, which they absolutely should. So let's just bring those positions to council, pull that budget total together, write up that letter to the county, and we'll share it with council, and then we'll send it on for this budget year. I think it's a great idea. Any thoughts, concerns?
Sounds like.
Do you want us to go ahead and try to bring that letter to council in 2 weeks?
I feel like council definitely, I mean, we think we should update them tomorrow, but I would like council to see the letter. So, yeah, I mean, I hate to delay sending it. I want to get it out as soon as we can for their consideration, but, we can put that on.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I don't think you can have the letter necessarily, but.
No.
2 weeks.
No expectation
Yeah.
that, yeah, we'll give them an update. We'll let them know what we're talking about and that this is the way we're moving forward. But yeah, we need 2 weeks. All right, anything else on that? Awesome, thank you guys. Okay, we'll go to item 6, rescue drug box exchange program update.
So things are going well. Picture.
Which one?
It's the one of the vending machines. Should be the-
It's gonna be one of those. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Big part of
We're pretty much ready to go. We've set a soft date of March 1. We have technically until April 15th now, but we're gonna just aim for March 1. That way, gives us a buffer, but we're saving money by not transitioning right now because we're still utilizing the WBMS boxes. That's just, I just wanted to give some visuals of where we're at. So that's actually our, if you go back to the bottom.
Yep, sorry.
That's just, those are not our RFID narcotics flags that are, so we're individually tracking every vial of schedule 2 through 5 narcotics. There's a reader above that. So in our software, we can actually see down to the second when it leaves the safe, and then what safe it goes to. And then if you want to go to the orange box, which I brought some physical things here if you wanted to see them after. But every provider is going to have a physical box that's assigned to them prior to the shift. It's going to be loaded with the narcotics that they're going to be in control of, and then they return it at the end of their shift. That's a little bit different model than other agencies are doing, where they're kind of leaving narcotics on the ambulances, and then they more or less do a transfer paperwork, but so it kind of just stays in that box and then stays in the ambulance, and then they sign it over shift to shift. We're actually having people take possession of a box, verify it, stay in possession of that for more or less the shift, and then kind of return it. And with the model that we have, I think it makes sense, and it's actually kind of what the Army's been doing, and they've probably had an EMS agency, if you will, longer than anybody, so they've had time to test it out. But this, I like the idea of kind of creating some ownership within the providers. So if you want, and That's the vending machine that we've been talking about. Right now it's empty because we've been going through and changing the coils out to meet the size of everything that we're gonna put in it. So that's why we're on the top row right now. That's why there's a little bit of a gap. But so that's gonna be where people restock their Schedule 6 medications, which is the non-narcotics. Only lieutenants are gonna be able to restock the narcotics, which are kept in the safe that you saw earlier. But that just keeps it clean, keeps it safe. And it utilizes the fob access that we've already implemented throughout the town, so we can control access very easily. We can scale it up and we can scale it down. That's the inside of the box that we can customize to basically fit exactly what we're gonna assign to different providers, because some providers can only have certain medications, even within the ALS space. So, you know, people can carry 2 vials of ketamine, there's gonna be a space for 2 vials of ketamine, again, just trying to keep everything safe. All the licensing and everything for all the software is already in place, and we're in the testing phase. That was another big thing about going down to Pulaski, is they had a lot of good ideas that we were able to collaborate and share on. And that's one really neat thing about this transition, is it's created a lot of conversations between a lot of different agencies about what they're doing, what we're doing. And it's been a really good thing, I think, in the EMS space in general. Just it's got people talking when previously there hasn't been much conversation between agencies. So
Do you have security cameras or camera surveillance
we
on
do.
the
So,
outside of those machines?
so there's, I think every exchange point has to have a minimum of 2 cameras facing it. So we actually have a camera outside the door to a bigger supply room. We have 2 cameras inside the supply room. We have a camera inside the inner supply room, which is even past another door. And then we have 24/7 security monitoring on that door. So we get alerted if there's Rick and I get an alert if a vial leaves when it's not supposed to. And that's just if someone took 1 vial out of there. I can set alerts on that. So yeah, it's quite secure, which is one of the reasons we wanted to take our time, just making sure everything's just safe.
That's all part of, Mayor, it's all part of DEA's regulations for this and everything. Means badge access to get into those 2 rooms. You gotta have a badge, you gotta have a town ID to get into the front room, and then you gotta have the same ID to get into the next room. So we know who's coming, who's going, we know who's pulling stuff out of the machine, we can track it. That's been a big undertaking, and I can't thank Josh enough for what he's done to get this stuff in place. And we actually had our stuff in place probably a month sooner than anyone else in the county did. And it's been a major taking just stuff. Done a good job with it.
We've added basically an extra 2 security measures on top of what's mandated. So where there should have been where there should be something behind 2 locks, we have it behind 4. So. It should actually facilitate like faster turnaround times especially with the new ER. Because now, before we were exchanging a drug box at the hospital or at the destination hospital, whereas now the idea is to stock the ambulances enough to basically make it through a 24-hour shift. So as soon as they drop that patient off, they should actually return to service and not really need to go back to the station to resupply, and not have to wait on staff there to exchange a drug box, which was taking between 20 and 30 minutes before.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a lot more time in service, hopefully, which we've already have seen a little bit from the ER, because if we're on Main Street and we take a patient there, we're saving 30 minutes round trip, and so that's 30 more minutes of the ambulance being in service. So.
To other items?
I just wanted to bring this to y'all, to everyone's attention. Just basically, it's the response plan. We're mandated that we have one every 2 years. We have to kind of go through it before our agency inspection. And basically, I thought it might be appropriate to just do it in the first session every year, because it's kind of what we're bound to do as an agency. the main point of this one is we have it said that, you know, at a minimum, 2 ALS ambulances will be staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and at a minimum, 1 ALS supervisor, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I kind of just wanted to leave this and see if later down the road, we need to have a process for how we wanted to make changes to this. I kind of took what was already existing and then changed it to what we're kind of just currently doing. But I figured it might be a good idea to get this committee involved with it too, because the staffing requests that I put in kind of come from to meet our response time goals. And I am mandated to deliver like a fractile pounds report at the beginning of the year, which basically just says if we meet our it just basically says if we're meeting this metric, and we are. So I think our goal was 10%, and for all customer service. So our goal is less than 13 minutes dispatch to scene times for no more than 10% of calls. We're at around just over 5% of calls. And when you take the mutual aid calls out of that, we're actually below 5%. And that's even including responses to alpha and omega calls where we don't run lights and sirens. Those are like kind of the non-critical calls. So those can have a tendency to skew the results a little bit. Because again, we're not flowing through traffic lights and everything. And if there's a call like that to, you know, somewhere that's on down Peppers Ferry, we're not naturally going to make it in 13 minutes because we're obeying traffic laws. So, I mean, we're still well under the mandate for that. So I just.
When do you update this?
I think previously it's been done prior to EMS inspection, which is every 2 years. Which I don't think we've had a meeting since then. So we passed our EMS inspection. We did really well. But as kind of we were preparing for it, I just thought it might be a good idea just to bring this at the beginning, kind of with the fractile pounds report, just see if any changes were needed.
There's nothing that I see that I would change about this, but I think it's helpful for us to see this so that when you have your staffing requests, you know what those are based off of.
And that is one thing I noticed that it was incorrect in here, the career staff in the second to last paragraph is incorrect. I updated numbers if you would like them. I'm just gonna take that. We have to have this submitted into the state website, whenever there's a change. But currently we have 4 full-time paramedics, lieutenants, 8 full-time paramedics, and 1 EMT and 1 aid team. So it does have a tendency to change throughout the year as people progress in their career because they're usually concurrently going to school. So they're constantly progressing.
You know, after I read it, I'll let you know. I have to try to digest what's on there, but at a glance, it looks like I don't know what some of it is anyway. So.
Oh, thank you.
Not the sound of literally.
All right, any other items? All right, well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.
Great.